Hey everyone, we will be starting in just a couple of minutes. While we wait, we also will be putting up a quick poll. So do take a moment and vote in the poll. So a very big thanks to everyone who has voted. Now talking about the great mix that we have today. Around a third of you are from chemicals and manufacturing, followed by pharma, healthcare, then agro and crop protection as well, and quite a few from food, fragrance, agrochemicals, etc. Now loving the diversity truly sets the tone for a rich discussion. A very good evening everyone and a very warm welcome to another edition of Molecule Makers. Scimplify's multi-platform series where we spark conversations that matter across the specialty chemicals industry. I am Sanchita from Scimplify, a full-stack platform for specialty chemicals helping companies scale 2000 plus products faster with in-house R&D and 150 plus manufacturing partners. Now, coming to today's discussion, it's all about a shift that's quietly yet powerfully reshaping the chemicals industry. The topic for today is Beyond Low Cost, Rethinking India's Role in Chemical Supply Chains. And to unpack what this transformation really means on the ground, we are joined by three incredible leaders who bring deep real-world insights to the table. First up, we have Mitesh Gangar, Vice President at Aarti Industries, someone who has not only shaped end-to-end systems across supply chain, procurement, and logistics, but also brought real-world impact by aligning strategy with execution across the global market. His depth of experience brings a grounded yet forward-thinking perspective. Joining us next is Nirjhar Negi, Director of Advanced Materials at IMCD Group. He has spent over a decade driving innovation in high-performance polymers, especially for the automotive and electronic space, and has a real knack for translating material science into real-world breakthroughs. His lens on the market-driven innovation is going to add so much to today's conversation. And finally, we have Salil Srivastava, our co-founder, with close to 15 plus years of experience in building and transforming supply chains. From ITC to Z-Work, Salil has always been at the intersection of scale, systems, and speed. At Scimplify, he is now reimagining how chemicals are developed and sourced across the globe. Before I hand it over to the panel, just a quick note. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat box at any time, and we will be taking up in the last 15 to 20 minutes of the session. And yes, we also have Amazon gift vouchers that await the most thoughtful questions, so keep them coming. Now, all right, let's dive in. Over to you, Salil.
Thanks, Sanchita. First of all, thanks to all the viewers who have joined us. Thanks for joining in. Definitely, we'll have follow on this. Thanks, Nirjhar. Thanks, Mitesh, for joining in and looking forward to this conversation. I think the topic itself is very, very interesting and very, very important, which address the need of our. Today, if you look at India, largely the international audience, international stakeholders in chemical industry look at India at a very, very different lens. They look India as a low-cost manufacturing hub, but this perception has been changing last few years. But lot of homework, lot of groundwork we have to do to improve this all. And definitely the second point of this theme, if you see rethinking the supply chain, why now is a very, very important question we have to answer. Why now is very, very evident as of now. If you look at what we see as a company, that entire country across multiple markets, they are facing significant challenges in supply chain. So the disruption is happening across the globe because of multiple macro trend. Could be your alternate supply chain de-risking approach. People are adopting China plus one. Europe is having other issue, and then lot of geopolitical issues. So people wanted to shift their supply chain base. The acceptance in the customer mindset is there that yes, now this is high time that they wanted to de-risk the supply chain. But the question still lies that whether we are geared up or not. Hi Nirjhar, if you can add. a few pointers on this.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you, Sanchita, for a lovely introduction. And Salil, I think you're on point. Today, we are living in a very different world. I think if I compare it to like 5, 6 years back, pre-COVID, post-COVID era, a lot of things have changed post-COVID. I think before COVID, China used to be the factory of the world, if I have to say it correctly. But I think now people have realized that too much dependency, be it the rare earth metal or be it from the pharma space, I think China dependency was too high, and I think we all suffered from that in one way or the other when COVID was struck. So the China plus one strategy is, and more the geopolitics situation that has been changing. You see, wars are happening. We are in a very interesting time where we have seen, I think, a pandemic, multiple wars, and more evolving tariffs all across. So it's not a usual time, and I think for a country like India, I think that's a great opportunity because I think we are in the middle of everything. Even if you talk about China plus one, I think I personally feel that we are a great country to be in the China plus one strategy. Looking at the scales and breadths of the country, the demographics, I think we have a lovely demographics to support it. The domestic demand, and I think even from a geopolitical standpoint, you see a lot of tariff situation evolving. Even if I just compare it to China today, I think we are still at a better position. Our costs might go up because of the tariff, but I still feel India has a competitive edge, and I think that's what I feel. So I think we are in a beautiful space. I think now is the time that we gear ourselves because it's not a one day journey. I think it's a journey that has to people have to think, people have to innovate, people have to be at the right place. I think that's where we need to do. But I think the pace has been set, and I think now is the time to take the advantage.
So earlier, when you look at 5 years back, when you approach a customer, and that point in time, people generally are not willing to even switch or no experiment with new supply chain. Wanted to switch from existing supply chain to a newer one. Now, if you see, the trend has been changed, and people are in that zone. That entire mood of entire customer is they wanted to change. They are saying that if you give us a product immediately, we can switch. Sort of that. If you
So, Salil, you know that I have a rich background into the automotive space, and we have been the raw material. IMCD has now been the raw material suppliers for, I would say, we are touching almost all the tier ones and tier twos. So, when earlier I used to speak to my principals, and I can't name obviously, they used to treat India as an export hub. So, when in Europe they were saturated with the market and whatever extra volume they used to have, exported to India. That's how the Indian market was, if I would say, pre-COVID or even before that. Now you see, I think the kind of investments that are coming into India, even if I talk about IMCD, I think we are very aggressive in investing in India because we see the potential that is there. IMCD is continuously investing in companies, they are acquiring companies. So we see India as a very strategic market. Even today, I think India is the second largest country contributor for IMCD global numbers as well. So I think you can see how the times have changed. And now when we speak to our principals, we talk about the India strategy. Like, what is the strategy that you have for India? And that's how we onboard our principals. And that is very important to understand because we being in the middle of the supply chain as distributors, it becomes a key responsibility to identify the right principal who has the right strategy coming into a new country or a high growth country like India.
So I think Nirjhar, what we have seen that the time why no question is answered. Like it's very India is at inflection point where we have to build strong capabilities, and the timing is now for that. And a lot of government initiative. Even recently, last week only, Niti Aayog has published a report where the roadmap has been built at what exactly we need to do across supply chain and multiple sector or segment. Leverage this timing of the market. So how you see that the capability wise, like what are the existing capabilities are there with India which we can leverage, and where all the gaps are, and where all we wanted to build new capabilities.
Salil, coming from a distribution company, I think our biggest asset is first people. So I think the technical ability that the country has, I think obviously there is still some gap that needs to be done. And I think that's the point where institutes and industry needs to come together. We as IMCD also, we do go to a lot of institutes. We approach them for internship. We give them real life cases in terms of what exactly can happen and what are the potential opportunities. So I think that bridge needs to come closer because the biggest challenge is the investment can happen anytime. You see the global companies coming in, but they also need to have the right local talent available. So I think that's something that that the country also has to work on. The institutes need to come together. They need to work with the industry very closely. Identify what are the gaps in the technical capabilities and then grow. So I think one side from the people, and the second point I would just compare it to China 20 years back. I think what India is doing is probably very much similar. We have understood that if we want to be successful in a chemical space and India needs to become like an export hub or an alternate to or be a part of China plus one strategy, I think we need to really work on our infrastructure. I think that is very important. The government is doing a lot of steps. I think you see the freight corridors coming up, you see chemical parks coming up, and now you see different states pitching different global companies to come, and they give them some kind of support and some kind of ROI so that it makes more sense for them to come to these countries. And LG Chemical is a classic example. They are coming up with their plant in City City, and the work that they've done, I think it's phenomenal. I think they were able to set up a plant in a time period of almost 18 months. So I think all these points become very important. I think the good thing, and why I think timing becomes very important, I think, and I will keep touching on this point again and again, is that now you see these things happening. I have seen companies struggle even for basic necessities like electricity also. But I think we have come a far way from that. I think all these things have been taken care of. The freight corridors are coming up. So the lead time internally is going down. The shipping ports are getting developed. So I think we have the timing wise, it's absolutely right. And I think once the investment is there, and we see more and more companies, more and more international companies investing. So the capital is coming in, government support is there, a lot of PLI schemes are there to boost up the infrastructure. You see PLI in battery space, you see PLI in chemical intermediates. You see also, because I'm coming from a rich background of polymers, so also on the industrial side, so you see a lot of PLIs on automotive components. You see a lot of incentives on EVs, a lot of incentives on electrical manufacturing. So I think the space is right. I think people who are enthusiastic about it, who understands business, I think would be the people who be investing and going
Very
for.
true. Yeah. So when we talk about chemical, I think India has built over last 70 years. India has built capabilities across multiple value chain, and in some feedstock, India has built more than sufficiency. Mitesh, what is your view that where we lack, or maybe we want to build more capabilities or ensure more feedstock? If you can, since you have very rich experience of value chain, so you can just put some light on this.
Sure. So, just feedback. Am I audible clearly now?
Still not, but yes, we are managing. I think we can manage.
Thank you so much. And I'm not sure, I'm not able to fully debug what is the issue, but let's continue anyways. So, looking at the entire chemicals industry in the spectrum of, how we add value. So, if you do that and we start with feedstock, we look at either crude oil or some mining-based chemicals, and sometimes it's just even ammonia, for example. So, looking at that, and then how we move downstream, the capabilities and the right to win sort of changes with each step. So from feedstock, we move to the basic chemicals, or these could be refinery inputs, these could be certain fertilizers, these could be caustic chlorine, and so on. From there to the intermediate space, which is mainly the area in which we operate in. And then from intermediates, we finally move to the actives. Actives are basically what are eventually adding a color or a certain end use, like a active pharmaceutical ingredient, like an agrochemical, and then from there are made the formulations which eventually go to the consumer. So the change or the amount of innovation that is required changes at each step. For basic chemicals, a lot of technology is already discovered, and what we need is capital. What we need is PLI and government support to be able to make such large projects a success. When we move to intermediates and then to actives, there is more and more R&D needed. At the intermediate scale, the R&D is needed more in terms of process efficiency and how are we able to manufacture things at scale efficiently and so on and so forth. And then when we go to the actives, actually there is a lot of new product development that is happening all across the globe. New pharma ingredients agro ingredients, new polymers that are developed, and then how can we support this innovation. So at each stage the key value drivers are different, and I think we need to look at each segment in terms of how we can build this in India better.
Interesting. So basically, Nirjhar has pointed out that India has a great capability in terms of talent pool and people first approach, what he has spoken on. You talked about the value chain play as well as building moat around the intermediate and forward downstream chemistries and chemicals. I think R&D plays a very significant role. So either to bring down the cost at scale, investment which is going under R&D, if you compare vis-a-vis the international market or the companies sitting out of Germany, US, Japan, all developed market, the investment in R&D is much way higher than that of India. So India is currently at less than 0.5% of investment of their total revenue. So what sort of, no, is a mindset issue or a capital issue or a people issue? What do you think? Because there's a significant talent pool sitting out. There are large companies who are there in the industry for last 40-50 years, and still there's a investment on the R&D side is very less. So is that a mindset issue or what exactly you see on this?
So Salil, I can say it from afar because I'm not from manufacturing, so we don't have to worry about R&D spends. But again, what you rightly pointed out is, I think it's on point. You see any successful company, for a company to be successful, I think they need to invest in R&D. I think a general norm in a European company would be around 5 to 10% of their total revenue. That's the amount that they are spending in R&D, and as you rightly pointed out, India would be 0.5 to 1%. So my personal take on this is that it is more on a mindset of the promoters of the Indian companies. It could be because India is more driven towards matching specs. So you see European companies, you see their products and you match those specs. Rather, what the European companies on the other hand do, because we represent a lot of European companies as well, they work on a very development mindset. So they will go, they'll sit down, they'll understand the problem. It's not a product that they are selling, but they have a very solution-minded approach when they go there. And a lot of companies in India has also started to change that. I would not like to categorize that India is not doing it.
Very true.
But as you rightly pointed out, I think the scale and breadth needs to increase. I think the mindset needs to change where from a raw material supplier or a chemical producer, you have to come out as a solution provider, because that's the value that then you will be creating in the supply chain. That's the value that the customer will also recognize. And I think the theme of the topic today is moving from low cost, right? So I think this is the only way you can do that. Otherwise, you will be always cutting on price. You will be always undercutting your competition. And that is not a very good market, because that is making you move towards commodity, and I think that's not a very good life cycle of a product. So you always need to innovate, you always need to spend on R&Ds, you need to get the right products to the market. In India, you see the demand of every consumer is so evolving. You compare it to an FMCG space or I would say even an automotive space. You see cars 20 years back and cars now, there's so much that has been changed. So if you don't innovate, I think you're falling back. Now customer require, I'll give you an example. Earlier the gear knobs in a car you used to see were made of PVC, and they used to fade away when after like 2 to 3 years. But now you see there are thermoplastic urethanes that go into that gear knobs, which you cannot finish. So that's the innovation that is happening on the product level. And if you compare the price, PVC price is much lower than the TPU price, but the customer is ready to pay for the value that you are giving to the customer. So I think that's the mindset shift that probably promoters or the business development manager or the strategy people need to think. I think that's something that needs to happen.
Right. So one is the talent is there definitely, and we have seen as a company that we work with a lot of manufacturers. So India has more than 10,000 chemical manufacturers, and 50-60% out comes from mid market, small and mid market players. And if you look at the innovation part of these factories or these manufacturing players are very non-enterprise grade, you can say. So I think a lot of boost is needed at that mid market level where people has to step up and do R&D, invest in R&D, or some sort of government boost or maybe a private player boost should come. We are also working on the similar line where we are helping a lot of manufacturers to give technologies, work with them, scale in entire technology transfer piece and the entire scale up piece. So on the manufacturing based side also, people has to come up, solve for R&D and invest in R&D. Large companies has done that, and that's where they are there. I think 50-60% market it has to work very hard to get onto R&D. One more point, I think, regarding the approach and mindset, Mitesh. Today, if we talk to international customer, definitely there is a very strong trust deficit that customers sitting outside India, they have been maybe the experience so far has been very, very extreme or bad, you can say. The trust deficit is there, and there are two reasons. One is the business ethics and the transparency. So if we have to win the world, we have to capture this, the tailwind, what is there today. So demand side, there's no challenge, but to capture that, you have to bridge that trust deficit. So you have to be very, very transparent, and ethic wise also, you have to be very, very super ethical, I guess. So what is your experience has been so far? You have dealt with lot of manufacturers in India and customers globally. If you can put your thoughts on this.
I think I will it twofold. One is some comments also on the previous R&D discussion that we were having. And I would want to say that where we lag, right? We are in terms of institutes, we have the best institutes in ICTs, IITs, and NITs and so on. So there is great lab level R&D happening in India. There is also process level R&D that the large companies may be doing to improve on whatever they produce. So they are manufacturing processes, etc. There is good R&D happening there. There is a bridge or a gap in terms of commercialization of new technologies. And where we see a lot of gap happening is there is no support for piloting the developed technologies that we would have done at the lab scale and so on. And this is where actually these small and mid-sized companies could come in and play and have a role, right? And where we today see a deficit, we need to create a different network which does not exist, which can be a mix of both academia as well as support from larger companies in the industry to these smaller companies to develop something different, develop something new. And that is how we can incubate a lot of new things within India. Coming to how the global partners see us, the good thing is actually, we worked on several long-term projects with global chemical partners, especially on advanced materials and so on. And at least the trust level with working with Indian companies is higher in terms of the IP. So I regularly now see companies saying that versus a Chinese partner, I would prefer working with an Indian partner purely from the perspective of that at least my technology and IP is going to be respected. If I want to jointly develop something from a lab scale to a commercial scale, I can trust this Indian company to work on data. The second thing is, I think as Indians culturally, two things I have seen in the older days happening in terms of doing business. One is, over promising and sort of under delivering, which has happened by Indian businesses. And as a sort of in the Indian culture, it is sort of okay, but for a lot of Western cultures, it probably does not resonate very well. Once you commit something, you deliver, and you cannot overcome it. The second thing is also a lot of older ways of doing business involved information arbitrage. So basically, people thought they could succeed in business because they knew more than the other person, and therefore they may be able to sell something better. That is fundamentally what creates a trust deficit. What we today need to look at in terms of doing business is fundamentally changing this approach, where the client is going to know whatever you know sooner or later. If they don't know it today, they will know it in the future. So at least to build trust, you share all the information that is needed and you become sort of consultative to the client in terms of solving their problem, not selling what you have. So I think this change in approach is something that we need to introspect, and probably that will change how the world views India.
Very true. And we have seen a lot many incidences that customer in US or Europe or Japan, they are visiting India frequently. And when we are saying that, okay, we can develop and do scale up in one of the factory, they wanted to see by their eyes, they wanted to visit the factory, audit it, because the trust deficit is still there. So one is we have to shift from, very, very unprofessional way of doing business to a high level of commitment we have to give to these customers. So what we are seeing day to day that that trust deficit is there, but still a lot of companies are able to bridge that gap. So very interesting. I think one more point I wanted to cover up. So how a tech or digital transformation or some sort of digital tool will help to bring the transparency in the supply chain, or bring the trust or visibility to these customers. Any such sort of examples, or you have seen such cases in your previous experiences?
Yes, Salil.
Nirjhar, if you can, yeah,
Yeah,
please.
sure. So Salil, I think digital now I would see as a differentiator. It is, I think, a need of the hour. I think India is, you see a number of mobile, the data that Reliance publishes most number of users and all things like that. So I think India is quite digitally savvy, and I think the way we do business is going to change in the coming years with the AI coming in, with everything. These are the concepts which might look in distant future, but I think it will hit us sooner than we expect. And I think that is, and whoever adopts this today is, I think, because I think we spoke a lot about trust. I think Mitesh touched a beautiful point on over committing and under delivering. I think
All
that
spot statement, yes.
and I think that has been the problem for the traditional business owners. I told you, Salil, I was running my own company before, so I know these things do happen. But I think technology bridges that gap, and I think the more technically enabled we are, the more better decision makings we can do. I think we have more control over our business operations, and it could be from a distribution standpoint, from a supply chain standpoint, from a manufacturing standpoint. I think the amount of data that today you can have, and based on those data points, the decision making that you can do, I think those are the things that can actually bridge the gap between transparency, between the confidence, and I think even the customer supplier relationship. I think all these things, it helps you in inventory management, it helps you in finding out your new customers, tracking lost customers, opening up cross-selling opportunities. So a lot of things can happen. I'm not saying it is not happening today, but I think there would be a lot more structure to it once we have technology coming into play.
So why I have initiated this point, because we have developed a platform where we have onboarded more than 500 plus customers, and we have listed all the data points of the factories, like what type of utility compliance they can manage. And when we are sharing this with international clients, that look, you will have entire visibility that which factory you can do audit virtually, or maybe in you can visit personally also, and you can see the entire order tracking, where your order is. That's where your over commitment and under delivery, they don't see that entire thing happening at a factory, and ultimately then, and we also face a lot of challenges in that. So but when we have created this and shown to international customers, they are like, wow, this is something which we wanted to have. So that's where I'm very curious to understand that what are such areas we have to build digitally more, so that it can create or build more trust with these customers. So one is definitely the entire visibility we are providing. What else can be done, if you can?
Salil, at IMCD India, we also have our own platform. Obviously, it's for our own customers, so we might be competing there, but that's on a lighter note. But yes, I think we have our own platform where you can log in, what kind of products that we can offer you, what kind of other products we can offer you. So it's an AI-driven tool. It's the customer can just log in, and it's more like an Amazon. So you see different products, different kind of process types, different suggested products also come in. So I think this also helps a lot of people in the R&D, because sometimes when our sales team is in the market, they are also mostly approaching the commercial people, and they might miss out on the R&D people or some of the people who are not the front face of the customer. So I think for such people, I think these platforms becomes very useful. It also, again, you can get this in one platform, and I think technology is helping us do that. I think chemical industry is no exception. So I think it's a great tool. So that is one thing that IMCD and India is doing. We have our own platform where customers log in, and from order processing to great suggestion, we do it all. It is more like a consultancy that we provide for free.
Mitesh, if you have experienced any such tool, or if you have implemented any digital intervention you have done, you can explain that as well.
When we have invested, internally in a lot of tools in building this technology, still remains something like Amazon. When you order as an individual, as a consumer on Amazon, the pricing is clear. You know the lead time in which the delivery is going to happen. Then there is order tracking that is available. When you want to go back on to documents, in our case, probably the COAs, etc., it is also available in one place. So I think increasingly, as we speak to young age buyers, they are more and more comfortable with digital solutions, and they want all of this to be available. Nobody wants to call or send an email or conduct meetings to discuss where is my order. I think a lot of process in B2B kind of industries goes in until you close the sale. So there'll be a long lead time in terms of developing that. But once that happens, frankly, everything should be so smooth that there should be no intervention needed in normal cases. And that is, I think, the end goal towards which we are working right now. We have discrete systems. We manage customer customer relationships with Salesforce. We have another system that we've partnered with where we do the order tracking, documentation, etc. And we are looking forward to actually how we can unify all of this into one piece, so that to the customer it is available as a one-stop solution.
I think we are at end of session. We are approaching the session now. So quickly a recap that what we discussed. I think overall the why now point is very clear. But in terms of capability building, as you rightly said, that investment on the R&D, that too on the downstream side, on the intermediate and the application based product, we have to boost our R&D investment and the capabilities both. Overall, we see that as of now, or maybe the things are changing, but India has been in other industry also that assembly led manufacturing hub, not a value added manufacturing hub. So Nirjhar has pointed out that a lot of things are changing. He has given example of automotive industry also. So I think next 5-10 years is the time for India. India is at inflection point where we will become a value chain led economy in terms of across all the industry. Definitely chemical is at forefront of it. Right. Thank you.
So, a
Thank you, sir.
beautiful and an insightful discussion that we had. We also have some questions from our audience, and I would like to state them one by one. So, the first question that we have is how does India compete in the international market with China pricing, and what is the government support in the China-Sure as well? So, first question is, this is the question: how does India compete in the international market with China pricing, and what is the difference between the government support that we have?
And Mitesh has already answered that. I think significant without R&D, we cannot achieve that price competitiveness until unless significant innovation will go into that. The cost optimization will happen through a lot of process innovation. So that's where India has to work, because competing with the scale is very difficult, because the kind of investment is there versus India is different. So I think the right answer is investment in R&D, optimization, innovation of the product itself. Second, what government is doing, I think one of the key industry where government is very attentive and investing a lot. Recently, last week only, Niti Aayog has built a roadmap for this industry. I think one of its own kind of industry, like not all the industry has that attention. So where government is going to set up chemical park, building capacities across bulk storage, investment in the R&D. There are a lot of incentive, PLI incentive is there, and then your OPEX incentive is just introduced, is proposed now. So government is supporting in lot many ways. Mitesh, this is the question I think you have already answered, but if you can answer this.
India versus China, cost-wise, there isn't much difference. If you look at maybe sometimes there is the feedstock advantage that China may have, but if you look at all the other costs, whether it is utilities, whether it is labor, whether it is effluent processing, India is equal to or better than China. So I don't think that that is a problem. Only thing in India is we are very diversified versus in China, they look at the entire value chain. So they look at step 1 to step 5 when they look at their profitability. In India, we want to look at profitability at each step, and that's somewhere therefore those expectations are different. But in our experience, if you invest in a product long enough, actually we've been able to sell multiple products to China. I'm not sure how many of the audience are aware, but there are at least 2 products of Aarti where China has imposed anti-dumping duty on India. We usually hear the reverse, but this is the case, that has also happened. So we are very confident in terms of, also being able to sell to China.
And this is very
Salil,
evident in pharmaceutical industry as well. Lot of market leaders are there. They are product leader across the world in those segments. So if you look at likes of large companies, they are the product leader across the globe. They are even better than China in terms of cost structure.
Indeed.
So,
And Salil, I'll just add one more point from a supply chain point of view. I think speed and supply chain reliability are also 2 major points that the modern buyers are looking at. It's not just cost. Cost is definitely a big factor of decision making, but I think post pandemic we have had a black swan effect where we were exposed of too much dependency on China. So people are also now looking at different countries, and they're also looking at which could be a right country alternative. Apple is a classic example of shifting their iPhones to India. So I think very similar things are happening in India also. We will in the near future see a lot of capex coming in and a lot of chemical parks coming into India, where India will be the supply chain reliable partner for the globe.
Another question we have from our audience. So, phosphoric acid is a raw material for DAP manufacturing, and same material is in demand for EV batteries. So the first question is, how will this affect supply chain and pricing for fertilizer products? And the second follow-up question is, opportunities for Scimplify in the recent move by China to stop specialty fertilizer supply to India. So
Second question I'll answer, but first one over to you,
yeah.
Mitesh. So DAP raw material is phosphoric acid, and now it is going in EV. So how it's going to impact the entire fertilizer supply chain?
So again, frankly, if you look at the value chain, so there is rock phosphate, and rock phosphate is mined, basically a mined product from certain regions of North Africa and Middle East, to from which phosphoric acid is made. The relatively less investment needed to sort of improve these mining capacities, which I know people in Egypt, in Jordan, in Morocco are already doing. Electronics or batteries versus fertilizers are orders of magnitude different. So the amount of phosphoric acid that is needed in fertilizers is way higher than what is needed other applications. What I think government is also working on and where India needs to focus is how we can make fertilizers which are inherently sort of made in India versus which will always be competitive elsewhere or outside. So both, if you look at natural gas and rock phosphate, which are the key feedstocks for ammonia and phosphoric acid, India is not strong in. So to assume that we'll be a strong manufacturer in DAP is well a wish list. But meanwhile, government has been promoting fertilizers like single superphosphate, which can be predominantly made in India. India also has a lot of lower grade rock phosphate, which can be value added to make something like a single superphosphate and so on. And then there are government is also looking at various alternatives to the nitrogen input versus a urea or DAP that can be used. And frankly, while Salil will answer the second question, frankly, that is the space that we are also looking at in terms of how we can support the Indian farmer better with indigenous products.
Right, exactly. So definitely, if any country bans critical product to any country, that country will definitely work on bringing the right technology and making themselves self-reliant. In similar fashion, I think Indian fertilizer companies are working on that. Where we have also worked is like a lot of specialty fertilizer used to come from either China or maybe some part of Southeast Asia and Middle East, as you said, Jordan, Egypt, and all. We are developing certain technologies which are much better in terms of content of, let's say, potassium and nitrogen, and we are now scaling those product in at factory level, and sooner it will be launching. We'll be launching those products in the market. So lot of tailwinds. Like there are so many products you can do, but we are very we have selected few products, and Simplify will get benefit out of those products also down the line. That's the answer. I think not only fertilizer segment but across the chemical we have seen such product. Today, if you look at more than thousands of product, it's sitting on the CRM where we are working on that. So that's the kind of scale. Thanks for asking that question, by the way. So any other questions, Sanchita, you have?
I have one more question. So, what are the key metrics to track to measure the success of India's transition beyond low cost hubs? So, this is the question. Either of the panelists can answer. So,
The
So
question is, what are the key metric
to
or
track,
indicator someone should track to
measure
know
the
see
India's transition.
India's
Yeah.
India's transition. I think
so
one or two which we are doing, I can answer that. Nirjhar and Mitesh, you can add on to that. One is the unique product, what is coming to India before India was not manufacturing, right? So why it is coming to India is not because of just a low cost manufacturing hub. It is coming because India is able to do innovation in those products, build the processes and technologies of those products, and manufacture that product at scale. So one metric is that how many number of unique molecules or products coming to India. That is one metric. Any other points you want to add, Nirjar or Mitesh? I have two more, but I'll
in terms of key metrics or indicators, I think you're talking about from a company standpoint, right? I think what exactly would they be looking at from a company standpoint? So I think one definitely what you touched on, Salil, is on the portfolio, because it cannot be all because if it's a low cost, then the portfolio looks entirely commoditized. Whereas I think if it's a more specialty or even I would say a semi-specialty product portfolio, something like that, what we work at, I think that's a very good indicator of the products that you do to see if a company is into a low cost or a high value. And I think the more higher you go in the value chain, I think that's also another indicator given, because you are definitely every process at some
macro level, I think investment on the R&D side is one metric is there. So if you are only a low cost manufacturer, definitely you are focusing on the manufacturing output and all. You measure those parameters. But if you track the investment on the R&D side, it is one critical parameter or metric we have to chase. And other than the outcome of those R&D intervention is that how much of the output you are able to bring in the country, right? So today, what is happening in China, if you are replacing that to India, so that is one metric, that how many of such incidences or case studies or product you have built in India.
Correct.
So these
So
are the
I
two
think
metrics which I feel is important.
indeed, I think what Salil said, and what some companies would call as the vitality index, sort of how much of your revenue in the last 5 years came for newly launched product, and whether therefore you're really changing the game and growing with new products. Also, I would say how early do companies start participating on the innovation journey, with global partners. So whether you are supporting with a product that is already commercialized, or whether you start with the developer company in the R&D stage itself. So I've seen experiences where we worked on product for 10 years before they were commercialized. So that long of a journey, and the ability and patience to invest in it for so long until it is commercialized.
I think amazing question, by the way.
So there's a poll. We would like to request you all to vote on whatever you think is the right choice for you.
This is the poll.
So that brings us to the end of today's session. A heartfelt thank you to all the speakers for sharing such thoughtful insights, and to all of you for the questions, the energy, and your time. If you missed any part, don't worry. We will be sharing the full recording over mail, and it will also be uploaded on our YouTube channel along with our website as well. So along with that, we will also be posting on LinkedIn. So follow us there and stay tuned for more Molecule Makers conversations coming your way. Thanks again for being with us, and see you next time. Thank you all. Thank you so. Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nirjhar. Thank you, Mitesh. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining in.